If you look at it, is the dark still there? Because if the light of full consciousness is brought to bear, is there darkness? The problem is the subconscious, isn't it?
What's the difference between the unconscious and subconscious? Is it the same thing or?
Well, the first problem is the unfortunate term unconscious, because the unconscious is not unconscious. The unconscious is tremendously active and tremendously alive. And in one sense is much more alive, much more active, much more potent than what we call the conscious mind, which is just a little fragment on the top. One might say the subconscious is the result of everything that's gone before. Everything that represents a lesser order of evolution than we are now. The accumulation of all that.
Samskaras.
Certainly the samskaras.
More than that, or?
But there's more than the subconscious. There's also what one might call the supraconscious. And the supraconscious level is that into which we are evolving, that into which the conscious mind is expanding. But two things happen. As awareness is brought to bear on the self, the samskaras diminish. The energy of the samskaras is emptied away and transmuted into the dynamic of greater consciousness. A transmutation occurs. So as you diminish, you expand. That's the paradox. As the past dies, so is the present reborn. And the expansion of the conscious has this twin area of emptying away the samskaras and thereby transmuting the energy of what has gone before into the dynamic of what is now, and enabling the supraconscious to come into expression within the conscious. And the supraconscious level is the level that already knows, is the level that supersedes the time-space continuum, the level that is beyond limitation, because it's beyond measurement, because it's beyond thought. Limitation, measurement are of thought. There is a level which knows. There is a level which will express the insights of direct seeing. When the energy of awareness has been brought to bear adequately upon the here and now, adequately therefore upon what has caused the here and now. And then the potential manifests. You and I were taught at school that the earth was a fragment of the sun, that the earth was gradually cooling down. At some future time, the death of the world would occur because the earth was cold and a new ice age would be our final phase. We were taught that, weren't we? Now it is computed that at some very remote future time, the death of the world will occur through the expansion of the sun. That the sun does not cool, the sun will not cool, the sun will in fact expand. And the expanding sun will embrace and contain all the satellites of the solar system. It will absorb and return them to the source. In ancient Zoroastrian teaching concerning the conflict of light and darkness, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of the Light, is represented as gradually extending, gradually expanding, and the power of darkness proportionately, gradually diminishing as the light increases. And the function of the good Zoroastrian is to enable the light to be born on earth. That is an ongoing, unceasing process of divine incarnation in which every human being participates. This can only mean that every human being must, as his Dharma, experience ever increasing, expanding consciousness. And where the light of consciousness is, darkness is not. Darkness means absence of light. In the ancient Vedic terminology, vidya is light. There's no word for darkness, only avidya, meaning without light. In the highest states of mystical insights, it would appear, life is cognized as an infinity of light. Light inhabiting everything, every atom of existence that has been, that is, that will be, is all an infinity of dancing light, an ecstatic expression, sporting in innumerable forms, through itself, with itself, for itself. Darkness is the awareness of no light. When awareness increases, there is no darkness. When consciousness fulfills itself, the darkness is not. Christianity, it seems to me, was a straight lift in its essential doctrines from Persian teaching, Iranian teaching. This strikes me as very interesting, that the ancient Vedic teachings laid great stress on Soma, on the wisdom power emanating from the moon to the earth. The moon is the cosmic Holy Grail. In the ancient mythology, the cosmic artisan fashioned the moon as the cup of ambrosia of the gods. And the cup of ambrosia of the gods holds the precious, regenerative, sustaining drink which man can partake of. And the ancient Vedic rituals were concerned with discovering how the elixir of life can enter into man. Agni, cosmic fire, created the sun. Then the ray of Agni, which was the spark of Agni, buried itself in substance, in matter. Burying itself in substance, it became the child of substance, the child of matter. Agni, the spark, the seed of the light, was nurtured, sustained, and brought to fruition by the power of the earth. Agni is expressed as being born of the waters. The waters being the purified form of the earth that sustains life, from which life emerges, as historically it did. The waters are the womb of the earth. The unity of opposites in Agni, which is fire, and in water, creates the Agni Somao, the fiery water, the living water, which is the archetypal form of the Eucharist. This fiery water, this elixir of life, is a teaching of the ancient Vedas. I will give you living water, which, having tasted, you will thirst no more. The sacrifice is the external expression of man's inner truth. Externally, there is the organism that is burnt as the sacrifice. There's the priest who is the officiant at the sacrifice. And there is Agni, the flame, which devours the spent body and transforms the spent body into vapour, which then ascends through the agency of Agni. Agni consumes the corporeal. The purifying fire consumes the corporeal, releases the power from it, and enables it to ascend to greater life. The enactment of the initiatory ceremony, which was the Agni sacrifice, is an expression of the inner growth. It is the self, the spirit within, the Agni within, that sacrifices itself through itself to itself. All is one. Life is one. Spirit emanates ego, ego emanates corporeal body. All is one. The corporeal level is the level of the sacrifice. The ego level is that which is transmuted, transformed through the sacrifice. And the ambrosia of life is the fire within the water. In this case, the fire within the juice of the plant. Consider this. The teaching of the ambrosia, which is the fire within the water, Agni born in the water, of the water, is the base of the ancient Vedic initiation culture. It is implied, but very little stressed, the teaching of resurrection. It is only implied. The most ancient teaching of resurrection was in ancient Egypt. Osiris and Isis and all that. Very ancient. As far as I'm aware, there is nothing in ancient Egypt about the cup, about the elixir of life. Resurrection, yes. The soma, no. In India, the soma, yes. Resurrection, no. But the two meet in Iran. In Iran. Iran means Aryan. The Aryans of Iran and the Aryans of India were the same people. They were Proto-Nordics who carried battle axes as they did from extreme northern Europe down to central India. They carried battle axes and they rode Volvos called chariots. In the Rig Veda, there is the teaching of the cup and the elixir of life, but not resurrection. In Iran, long pre-Christian, there is the Vedic teaching of the Soma, called the Homa, and resurrection. Somewhere along the line, the initiation processes of Vedic India and the initiation processes of Egypt met in Iran, long BC, And they reach their culmination in the tremendous figure of Zoroaster, the Greek name of Zarathustra. Zoroaster meaning the living star. And from that derives Christianity, the essential doctrines of resurrection and the elixir, the Eucharist. It's all concerned with regeneration, renewal, the triumph of the light. And there's much, much more meaning to it than we have allowed ourselves to appreciate. Much, much more meaning to it. What is this elixir? What is this soma? If someone is in the superconscious state, so one gathers, there's a great heightening of energy within the individual and within the surrounding atmosphere. I believe you notice it in Krishnamurti. If you are touched by one who knows that state, you are aware of an electrical discharge. That's the closest you can come to describing it. That energy transference is initiatory. It is also healing. It may well be that the healing process is an initiatory one. It probably is. It has the effect of intensifying the innate healing impulse within another. There's a passage in the Rig Veda which is a very uninhibited document. It uses the curious pictorial language which one must whisper here. The officiating priest is holding the goblet of the soma between his hands. And this is described holding it tightly, like a man in bed with two women. Now there's a deep meaning in that. There's a deep meaning in that. The cup is the female symbol. The cup contains the elixir, the water into which Agni is born. Agni is born of the waters. Woman, more than man, is a channel for the earth energies aspiring to the light. More than man, woman expresses the sustaining and evolutionary impulse. In this context, a man in bed with two women is drawing the earth energy to himself. It's a two-way traffic, of course. But in this context, the earth impulse is the more potent factor. That's the meaning of that imagery, which one can hardly read in a class context, keeping a straight face, let alone in a nunnery. Now, the hands of the priest are holding a cup. What is the priest? The priest is the Rishi, the Vedic Rishi. There's enormous power in those hands. The energy that comes from the hands of a Rishi will somewhat change the nature of the metal of the cup, will somewhat change the nature of the fluid within the cup. Energy is born within the human being. New energy is born within the human being who has found expressed within himself or herself the fusion of solar and lunar forces. Agni fire, Soma lunar, waters, ambrosia, the subtle secret seed of power. One who takes the cup from the hands of a rishi does not drink an ordinary bit of booze. Agni is born. Because Agni is born within the structure of a sage, because the Kundalini dragon unites with Agni in the structure of the sage, so the energy quality of the sage is transferable, and through the human agency, Agni is born into the water, into the Soma. I will give you living water, which having drunk, you will thirst no more. In some of the 12th century manuscripts, which resurrected the Grail teaching, a very ancient teaching, expressing a very ancient mystery, there is a scene expressed of a group of knights in a circle and the Holy Grail in the centre, the cup passing of its own volition from one to another. I personally believe, what it's worth, it happened. Telekinesis is to a penny. When the right assembly, in the right state of united consciousness, are present, telekinesis would be the most trivial of what would happen. In that situation, the vibration rate of the contents of the cup would change. the higher planes would incarnate into the refined form of the earth's substance, that is, the water that comes, as it were, as the blood of the plant. And it would be the elixir of life. But that would happen only with an assembly of knights, knights being a special symbol here, the warriors of spiritual action. What did happen to the sacred cup of Zoroaster? The Magi, who were reformed, reconstituted by Zoroaster, one of their titles was Keepers of the Sacred Treasures. What did happen to the cup of Zoroaster? What did happen to the cup of Melchizedek, Melchizedek, who made the offering of bread and of wine to Abraham, whom Abraham recognized as his spiritual superior? Did the keepers of the sacred treasures lose it? Philo of Alexandria, writing in the 4th century, shows a link between the yogis of India, the Magi of Persia, and the Essenes of Israel. Cyrus the Great, Cyrus Christos, head of the Persian Empire that dominated the entire Middle East, 6th century BC, released the Jews from the Babylonian captivity, following the abuse of the sacred temple treasures of Israel by Nebuchadnezzar, and at his own expense financed the return of Israel to Judea and the building of the new temple. Why? What does it mean? I wonder what it means. The question that restores the sick king and the wasteland to new life is: who is served by the Grail? Yes, the guardian of the Grail would be an archangel. And the physical expression of the archangel would be Melchizedek, king of righteousness. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, in direct line of transmission of the Jebusite kings down to Zadok the high priest, the Essenes being called the sons of Zadok, and therefore in direct line of transmission from Zadok, therefore in direct line of transmission from Melchizedek. It's time for tea, Pete.
I was just thinking that if the Grail could be just moved around through the people, then presumably it could well have been made invisible, awaiting the right
Well, dematerialization and materialization are old hat. Happens all the time, mate. Think nothing of it.
What would make it materialise again? I mean, what situation would call for it to be materialised again?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? A very, very rare situation. A situation of an individual or group of individuals whose consciousness was of the vibration rate of the Grail. That is, the vibration rate of Agni within the waters.
Would the Grail invoke that consciousness in them? The proximity of the Grail?
Possibly it might exert a magnetic attraction. But isn't it interesting, don't you think it's interesting, that Iran, it was Iran that drew the threads together of Vedic Soma teaching and Egyptian resurrection teaching?
Alan?
Tony,
We started off...
do you think we've been talking about homeopathy?
I've no doubt you could twist it around to that if you wanted to.
Carry on.
No, I'm going to have a hang. We started off by the talking about light and darkness, and whether in fact they are in fact in balance, or whether in fact all is light or one. And we used the example of the sun expanding, at least on the material, and in fact embracing the solar system. But in fact, the next stage after that is when the sun shrinks back, and in fact, in certain cases it's been speculated it becomes a black hole, which seems in fact to tie in with the Vedic view of pranayas and manvantaras, of periods of manifest light and dissolution back into the darkness. So in fact we are still back ultimately into this balance of light and darkness, in fact.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
From which the seed of light is then reborn again.
Yes. But as organic evolution proceeds, it is the phase of expanding consciousness is the phase of expanding light.
Sure, yeah.
Which must be the triumph of the light.
Yes.
At which point the Lord goes to sleep again. Within the cosmic darkness.
But within that major cycle there will be presumably minor cycles, all with a particular balance of light and dark within them.
That I wouldn't know, Tony. I've always assumed the days and the nights of Brahm to be total and infinite. So when the night is on, there ain't nothing.
We completely cease to exist.
Oh, yes.
Even in a discarnate state, we cease to exist.
Totally. There's nothing.
And when it starts up again, do we begin to exist again? Or are we kind of finished with...
I don't know, you better ask the Lord, mate.
When the black hole
Maybe he's had enough.
melting of light into a new universe, isn't it? Isn't this the theory?
Well, yeah.
So when one dimension closes down, it's opening out into another.
So we've got to hop into a new one before it all shuts down, is that right?
Yeah.